And new senators have been appointed. Independent senators appointed by a failing prime minister who's being chased out of caucus and cabinet, etc., by his caucus and cabinet. And so it's interesting. These senators are not independent, by the way. They're very, very liberal senators. But you know, that's just how things go these days. Pension over country. Jagmeet Singh's NDP promises to bring down the government right after Jagmeet qualifies for his pension. It's weird that the NDP caucus are all on board for this. Everybody says, you know, we really like our jobs and we'll keep them as long as possible, even if that means just letting Jagmeet run out this clock. Weird, right? Google dresses a man up in women's clothing to hawk skincare cream. So I've got some Christmas related stuff to show you today. And Gmail isn't cool. X isn't cool. Having your own domain name and then using non-Google products to do your email. That's the new cool thing. It used to be Gmail was cool, and now it seems like Google is. They used to have "Don't be evil" as part of their whole corporate culture, and now "Don't be evil." They got rid of that, and "Be evil." Be evil is like number one. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. The song that we started today with, I've highlighted it before, but somebody sent it to me saying, "Have you seen this thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've played it, but it's quite a good one. It's top of the British charts. It's called "Freezing This Christmas," and it's calling out Keir Starmer and the Labour Party for basically being liars, just like Justin Trudeau and the problems that are happening in Canada. It's interesting that it's happening everywhere, and I love parody songs. I think political parody songs are like the top of the creative or the top of the creative heap. I don't know why I think that, but every time I hear a good parody song, I'm like, man, this is fantastic. This is better than any of the music out there right now. But I guess it's not really a high bar. Anyway, David says, moving on a little bit, he says, holy cow, what the what? This is about AI and robots with guns on their head. But I had a theory, and I was joking around with a friend of mine about ChatGPT. I said ChatGPT, and I was kidding, right? ChatGPT, though, is like really whole warehouses of Indian people or Asian people or Macedonian people, because there's big click farms in Macedonia too, who are in a big warehouse, and they just keep getting these prompts, and they're just like typing furiously. Like, that's it. That's all AI is. Maybe not. I was joking. Like, I was kidding around with my buddy. I was like, we'll find out that AI is just, 110,000 Indian guys who are absolutely good at English and churning out, papers on demand. But this is actually real. And kind of in that vein, right? David says, holy cow, what? This is like that old mechanical Turk computer that played chess that was actually just a guy inside. Just over half of Amazon Fresh stores are equipped with the Just Walk Out. The technology allows customers to skip checkout altogether by scanning a QR code when they enter the store. Though it seems entirely automated, Just Walk Out relied on more than 1,000 people in India watching and labeling videos to ensure accurate checkouts. The cashiers were simply moved off site and they watched you as you shopped. So it's a way to offshore jobs that you think are, oh no, it's a robot. No, it's not. They're just offshoring to India or Macedonia or Asia or wherever they can offshore to. Very interesting stuff. I've heard of other people doing this. There's a guy, he's very well known for hacking physical service industry stuff and then applying lessons learned online to the physical stuff. And he basically said, if you show up and do the job that you promised to do, you beat more than 50% of your competitors. Most people don't even just don't even do the basics. He's right. But one of the things that he does is he uses remote work through using cameras and then live streaming and WhatsApp and things like that to make it seem like the person that he's hiring is local, but they're not local. They're in wherever, Philippines is because they speak English there. So there's a whole bunch of different places that they offshore jobs, but he's operating in the United States and multiple countries. He buys storage areas, and this is just one of his businesses. He's got tons of them. Levi's, I can't remember his name, but it starts with an L. And interesting. So this technology is not what it seems. It seems not what it seems, right? And I mean, maybe OpenAI is exactly what it seems, but maybe not too, right? So anyway, there's lots of Canadian news. So let's talk about that. Senators got appointed yesterday by Justin Trudeau, who is awful. And Andy Lee says, does someone else want to go through and tally our newest independent senators' contributions to the Liberal Party over the years? I'm tired, and there's lots of them. Canadian Prime Minister says, today Prime Minister Trudeau announced the appointment of Alastair Surrett and Nancy Kertok-Lindell as independent senators for Nova Scotia and Nunavut. And there are other people who are highlighting this. Pierre Poilievre says another partisan Liberal appointment as the latest Trudeau, quote, independent senator. Just like all of his other promises, it's a complete sham and he's a fraud. Fire this phony Prime Minister and call a carbon tax election now. Well, again, corruption election. There's other elections that I want rather than a carbon tax election. But CBC News is reporting Nancy Kertok-Lindell, former MP appointed as Nunavut senator. So she's a former, I don't know if it doesn't say Liberal MP. Maybe they're leaving that out for reasons, right? Like, we want you as informed as we want you, okay? Tamara Lich, let's move on and talk about the cabinet shuffle, because Justin Trudeau lost his finance minister and deputy prime minister in spectacular fashion on Monday and has taken until today to recover and actually start trying to put the pieces back together. He should have resigned. He should have dissolved parliament. And if he didn't, the Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the opposition and the only person, of the NDP and the balance of power, is not willing to drop the government because he won't be reelected probably, and he wants his pension. So they're not going to do that for a little while. And so now Justin Trudeau feels comfortable, I guess, that we've made it to the break and the government hasn't collapsed and the House is adjourned for the rest of the break. Now he's going to appoint senators and shuffle his cabinet. Tamara Lich says the current government, with the support of the leader of the NDP and local law enforcement, this is just a list of things that they've done to charge us up for the cabinet shuffle coming in. They colluded with government-funded Canadian media to paint Canadians as crazy, unhinged, angry lunatics, called Canadians terrorists, racist, misogynists, lied about foreign funding, donations, lied about Russian interference, it didn't happen, illegally spied on its own citizens, accused truckers of being rapists, lied about arson attempts of an apartment building, lied about law enforcement advice to invoke the Emergency Act, lied about legal advice advising to invoke the Emergency Act, lied about violence, unlawfully froze bank accounts, stole food and fuel, threatened to apprehend pets, threatened to apprehend children, accused us of using children as human shields, had our crowdfunding campaign frozen after contacting GFM and telling them that we were donating to domestic terrorists, or that we were domestic terrorists, beat military veterans, beat peaceful protesters with the butts of their rifles, shot Canadians with rubber bullets and tear gas, shot a reporter at point blank range with a gas canister, trampled a First Nation woman with heavy horses and then lied and laughed about it, arrested peaceful Canadians, left them in cold paddy wagons for hours, dropped them off on the outskirts of Ottawa in the middle of a snowstorm, joked about sending tanks to remove peaceful Canadians, claimed honk honk was an acronym for you-know-what, planted a nasty flag, sent government photographers out to snap a photo, seized donations in the same manner they would a drug cartel, violently arrested a senior citizen who passed and honked his car horn, threatened to hunt down anyone involved, unlawfully, unconstitutionally invoked the EA as determined by a judge. What did I miss? All of this in order to avoid a conversation with everyday tax-paying blue-collar Canadians. Not one of them has been fired, not one of them held to account. True. All of that's true. And Justin Trudeau, he's going to shuffle his cabinet. Andrew Coyne says 2 sources told CBC that the Prime Minister offered Industry Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne the finance portfolio, but he turned it down. Trudeau set to shuffle his cabinet Friday, that's today, after a tumultuous week, sources say. After Freeland's abrupt departure, Trudeau told MPs he would take time to reflect on the criticism of his leadership, but MPs have since said that Trudeau wasn't clear on when he'd report back on his plans. I'll get back to you. See ya. Oh goodness, these people are such suckers. These people, Canadians are suckers, Andrew. You're still posting about things with your Ukrainian flag in your profile. Give me a break, buddy. Justice Minister Verini was non-committal about Trudeau's future when asked by reporters Thursday at a press conference on another matter. Quote, in respect to what's been transpiring over the last few days in Ottawa, it's ultimately decisions will be taken by the parties that are involved. He said decisions will be taken by parties that are involved. So that's interesting. Here's a list of cabinet shuffles that have happened this morning. Trudeau shuffles fresh faces into cabinet today to fill vacancies. I mean, could you have a more vague headline? Nothing happened. What happened? Everything's fine. What do you mean smoke? There's no smoke here. No smoke, right? I don't see any smoke. Prime Minister Trudeau is shuffling. It doesn't really matter, all this crap. Today's shuffle is shaping up to see several Liberal backbenchers promoted. According to sources, Ontario MP Nate Erskine-Smith will become Canada's next housing minister. And I've got a little bit of color on that in the coming tabs, talking about how Erskine Smith specifically has been very critical of Trudeau. So it's interesting that he's in. And apparently he wasn't going to run again, but cabinet position changes that math, I guess. Anyway, taking over for Sean Fraser, who announced on Monday that he wouldn't be running, and taking over for public safety portfolio and from finance and intergovernmental affairs minister Dominic LeBlanc, who took the top economic post on Monday after Freeland quit, will be Ontario MP and current chair of NSICOP, David McGuinty. So if you're the chair of NSICOP, well, you're in an insider's insider, right? You know where all the bodies are buried. And so you get rewarded for being quiet about that and or referring people back to NSICOP to get their briefing and be silenced, right? Gagged. Sources have told CBC News that the other Liberal MPs who will be joining cabinet are Quebec MP Rachel B., Nova Scotia MP Darren F., and Manitoba MP Terry D. Sources have indicated that while Trudeau is ready to make changes to his inner circle, he's ready to make changes. He was ready to make changes because Chrystia Freeland threw him under the bus instead of being thrown under the bus herself. So, it's not to be interpreted as the Prime Minister being ready to declare his next steps, and it remains to be seen if he takes questions following the shuffle. Trudeau has also called a cabinet meeting for 3 p.m. today. Asked Thursday whether Trudeau still has the full support of his cabinet to stay on as Prime Minister, LeBlanc says yes. I've got that video. LeBlanc is one minister who said Trudeau has told him that he'll be staying on in his role until the next election, which has consequently poured cold water on the chatter around Mark Carney imminently making his federal political debut. I'll leave it there. That's interesting stuff. Holly Doan says MP Housefather and every voter in Cloverdale Langley, a lot of voters as well. Housefather says Politics 101, not one Canadian or MP that wants a change in leadership will change their mind because of a cabinet shuffle. So this isn't gonna help, is what he's saying. Very interesting. Here's some color on Nate Erskine Smith. It's only 1:19, so we'll listen to the whole thing. Here we go.
I don't know where the NDP are going on this, and I don't know if they do. But Kate, the back to the risk of tomorrow of people who don't get in. I know this is meant to be a stabilizing cabinet shuffle, like we just got to fill these jobs so the government can run because they need full-time focused people. But there's going to be people left outside. If 10 to 12 people is 153 people in the caucus.
Yeah, I think part of the reason we haven't seen a shuffle happen so far is because there has been concern around the Prime Minister's office that this is going to create a caucus management problem for them. There are no more carrots left after tomorrow. There's not going to be another shuffle. So if there are MPs that have been patiently waiting and biding their time and playing the game, and they're left on the outside looking in tomorrow, that is going to create a difficult few weeks for the Prime Minister. Again, the option is to either plug immediate holes and say, so this is really just about, kind of the mechanics. Yeah. But if they start making some bigger moves, then that's going to, cause a little more frustration, I suspect, with the backbench that have been playing this game, because it's like, well, why them and not me? And I've been loyal and they've not been. The fact we're talking about Nathaniel Erskine Smith,
that's an
one of his biggest, most vocal critics. Jagmeet Singh has been more loyal to the Prime Minister than Nathaniel Erskine Smith, and this guy's going to be housing minister.
I don't know if that's quite true, but it's a good point.
Making the case that Jagmeet Singh really deserves a cabinet position, eh? Oh, yeah, right? Oh, super loyalty. Loyalty deserves rewards these days. How ridiculous. How absolutely ridiculous. It's super interesting that they're talking about, all these loyal MPs, and they're not talking about the Chinese influence, the foreign influence, the fact that we're opening our borders, destroying our economy. Like, all this stuff is just secondary to, Jagmeet Singh's been super loyal, right? Unbelievable. Here is Dominic LeBlanc being asked about confidence. And here we go. And he says, yeah, everybody's super confident in Justin Trudeau. Everybody loves Justin Trudeau. Here we go.
I'm wondering, and I mean, we all have this question. So does Trudeau have the full support of his cabinet to stay on as Prime Minister?
Yes.
Simple yes?
Yeah.
Okay. And as a follow-up, would you like the opportunity in the future to lead this country if you were given the chance?
So full points for trying with that question. If the Prime Minister has the full support of his cabinet, then why would we contemplate what happens after he decides to leave?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Isn't having depth in your cabinet a good thing? Wouldn't it be good to know who is succeeding you or like these 4 or 5 or heir apparents type deal? I mean, Dominic LeBlanc is an heir apparent. He's somebody who's indicated that he wants to lead the party after Justin Trudeau leaves. Chrystia Freeland also wants to lead the party, and she's already getting her support tied up. There were a whole bunch of people who wanted pictures with Freeland. And I'm not saying that I support her or anything like that, but I'm saying that there are crazy people out there who think Freeland's the answer. And she's got the backing of the whole machine, really. True North says Dominic LeBlanc clarifies that the Prime Minister appointed him as Finance Minister to serve until the next election in 25, and says that Mark Carney isn't about to become Canada's Finance Minister. So he says, nope, Mark Carney's not joining the government. I'm it. Here we go.
Can you give us the story on Mark Carney? Is it over now?
I haven't had any conversations with Mark Carney myself. What I did say to a colleague of yours from Brunswick News, I think yesterday, is when the Prime Minister asked me to be the Finance Minister, he told me that I was going to be the Finance Minister in his government until the next election.
And you believed him?
Was going to be the Finance Minister to present the next budget, and 2025 will be an election year. So that's the work that I'm doing. And again, I wasn't part of any conversations with Mr. Carney, but Mr. Carney isn't about to become Canada's Finance Minister in the short term. The Prime Minister asked me to start that work and to get ready for a budget in the spring.
There you go. So budget in the spring is what Prime Minister's thinking about right now. Huh. Weird. HOC staffer says, oddly, the only one who is in a riding that the Liberals are likely to win is the one who said he isn't running again, Nate Erskine-Smith, or Erskine-Smith. The other four are in tight races in what are Liberal-friendly seats. Quick thread. So it just goes through. Beaches should be an easy victory if this person, Nate, wants to consider running again. Maybe this is Trudeau's way of saving a seat. So because if Erskine-Smith leaves this one, then it's not a safe seat anymore, right? And Winnipeg South is a close one. And so is Outermont, is surprisingly socialist for what's considered to be one of the more wealthy francophone parts of Montreal. Tight three-way race in Dartmouth. The Liberal may squeak out a victory if he can hand out some pork quickly. And here is David McGuinty losing the race in Ottawa South. So it's very interesting what's going on, and the cabinet is being shuffled. Jagmeet didn't make it. So, I mean, he's pissed enough to take first class Air Canada. Here is the Canada Proud, and they say Maserati Marxist Jagmeet Singh spotted flying in a first-class pod today. So they've got money, I guess. The NDP, no expense spared, right? There you go, Jagmeet Singh. You can have your own first-class pod. You want a nap? It's no problem. There's all sorts of space on first-class Air Canada, right? Whew. Marty up north says, warning, funny business with the Lethbridge West Bank election, or Lethbridge West election last night. This is why citizens are losing confidence in our election process. It's become too easy for the parties to game the system. I think our elections are completely rigged. I think our elections are rigged to the degree where all they need to do is sell the result to the public. Look at BC. All they need to do is tell the public, oh yeah, something happened and this is the leader. Cool. They don't even say the cool part. That's it. They just say, oh, something happened and this is the leader, and that's it. And there can be all sorts of evidence. Gone. See you later. Nothing to talk about here. And you get John Rustad in there and he says, okay, no problem. I concede the election. No problems, everybody. Apparently he's going to fight now in January. We'll have to see. Wait and see, right? But our elections are rigged. Like capital R, capital G, all of it rigged. Okay. So all of this doesn't surprise me, but I think that this goes to proof that it's rigged. But I mean, come to your own conclusion. I think it's rigged. Yesterday, there was a by-election in Lethbridge. All told, it was 13,561 people voted. And in the end, the NDP candidate won with 53.38% of the votes. It was a close election. 6,000. This kind of stuff just pops up sometimes, and that's super interesting in rigged elections. Okay, 6,665 people voted in advance of the election during a 5-day period, December 10th to 14th. That's 49% of the voters. This is where it gets funny. A record 1,016 people requested a special ballot. These are supposed to be hard to get and limited for people who can't vote during the other 6 days that are available to them. We're handing these out like candy. And while every other ballot box was in the 50-50 range, in line with the overall result, the special ballot was 65%. I bet you 66. I bet you if you look at it, it's 65.5 or something like that. Just not quite there, right? Maybe it is. in favor of the NDP candidate. Sorry, folks, but that's statistically improbable. It's what we would normally call an outlier when analyzing data because it stands out too much. Note, I'll analyze the result poll by poll when they're available to download in Excel. My suspicion is that the NDP volunteers targeted individuals and encouraged them to get special ballots. Vectors of attack, vectors of theft, and this election was stolen. And all of our elections are stolen. I think it extrapolates out pretty well. Wapamasqua says, we, the undersigned residents of Canada, call upon the House of Commons in Parliament to assemble to urgently demand that the Prime Minister advise the Governor General to dissolve Parliament and call an immediate election. So there's 8,000 signatures yesterday in the United Kingdom. They got millions of signatures. Keir Starmer's still there. I just wanted to show you this is happening. It's Our Commons petition. These things don't get results. You know what gets results? If you go out and hold rallies and you say, when I become the premier, I'm going to remove communist municipalities. I'm going to dissolve the school boards, all of them, and give the money to parents and encourage a different kind of education system that the parents run, not the state. Give it back to the parents, give it back to the power to the people. That would do something. Petitions online make you feel like you're doing something. It's a way to do something without doing anything at all. I'm sorry, that's just the truth of it. Maybe signing the Conservative Party petitions does something because then they fundraise off you. But really, again, I have issues with the Conservative Party supply management and all of the deals they've made previous to being in government. Polyev will be beholden to that. So I have concerns about that. I think the only way to solve this problem is to solve it not necessarily outside of the system, but it's certainly not going to get solved with petitions online. But this is happening. People are pushing and wanting to express ourselves, and this is one way to express ourselves, but it's going to be ignored. Don't fool yourself. Please don't fool yourself. Here is Alitha Raj, and she has an interesting take on what Justin Trudeau is going to do next. It's just a minute, and could be, this is kind of what I was talking about yesterday with Justin Trudeau saying, I'm going to step down, but now that I'm stepping down, I'm going to be the interim leader she outlines this. I'll be the interim leader to provide support, and then the interim leader will go into the next election probably. So we'll see. I don't know. This is medium plausible, but interesting take. Here we go.
I do think that a bigger question is how much can you trust the NDP to keep their word? So they want, or Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the party, has said he wants the Prime Minister to resign. What I understand from his office is he means not just resign as Liberal leader, but actually no longer be the Prime Minister. Yeah. But Mr. Singh has, called wolf before, and he lent his support on confidence measures throughout the fall, despite saying he was not going to do so, or suggesting he was not going to do so after the end of the supply and confidence agreement. So there is a scenario where the Prime Minister could announce that he is stepping aside, there is a Liberal leadership race, he intends to stay to become the interim leader because he needs to provide stability because of Donald Trump and la-di-da. And then he runs in the next election because he is the interim leader and the leader of the Liberal Party and still the Prime Minister. So there's a lot, I think, of games being plotted out within caucus and within the leadership teams to see what's more beneficial for us and what do we need to push for. But I think if he does not offer his resignation in the next weeks to come, it's going to get really, really, really ugly.
It's not ugly? It's pretty ugly. The finance minister, deputy prime minister, basically told the prime minister to go F himself. And it's pretty ugly. It's pretty ugly already. So it's going to get ugly? Okay. Buckle up, everyone. Chris Selly. Well, this is a Boromir meme, right? And this is usually this is the one does not, right? One does not, merely walk into Mordor, right? That's what he's saying here. And instead it says, of all the things that never happened, this never happened the most. And Chris Selly is reporting, and the Globe and Mail is in fact reporting too. Mr. Trudeau was prepared to step aside on Monday, but he was talked out of leaving, a third source said. Very skeptical. I'm very skeptical. A third source like Trudeau's other body double? Listen, dude, if I can't be a body double for you, I'm going to be out on the street. And people might attack me. I need you to stay in this position. I have no idea, but it's interesting. And I guess Trudeau, according to the Globe and Mail, was talked out of stepping down. It seems like we're getting political games played with us around Christmas time, right? This is not your usual. This is not usual. Any of this is not usual. Rachel Thomas says Monday, Trudeau dropped a $62 billion deficit. He's left the government in chaos. Thursday, he still hasn't answered to Canadians for his mess. Call an election now. Yeah, the new finance minister is saying, I'm gonna do a budget. Like, dude, can you answer questions about the current fall economic statement? $62 billion? But he's not read in. He doesn't know, right? He has no idea. Michael Cooper, I'm sure he's getting up to speed, but like this all just happened, right? So like if you get handed, here's the state of Canada's finances, I don't know that you'd be able to answer questions about it within 24 hours other than like move your collar because it's so hot under there, like Jeepers Creepers. Michael Cooper says sellout Jagmeet Singh's House leader confirms that the NDP will keep Prime Minister's chaotic government in power until at least late February. This just happens to be after Jagmeet Singh qualifies for his $2.3 million pension. This is not a coincidence. It's pension over country for Jagmeet Singh. So here is Michael Cooper, and he's talking about this. Here we go.
Jagmeet Singh's House leader, Peter Julian, has all but confirmed that the NDP will continue to prop up Justin Trudeau's costly, corrupt, and chaotic government until Singh secures his $2.3 million pension. We are witnessing Justin Trudeau's government crash in real time as cabinet ministers and backbench Liberal MPs day after day abandon Trudeau.
A number of our members who feel we need a change in leadership. I'm one of those.
I think it is time to shift gears.
I'm asking the Prime Minister to announce that he'll be stepping down.
The Prime Minister is living in a false reality. He's delusional.
I think he needs to go, yeah.
Jessica, I'll ask the same question of you. Do you think the Prime Minister should resign?
Yes, I do.
But not sell out Jagmeet Singh, at least not yet. In the face of all of this chaos, Julian said that Singh and the NDP maybe will vote non-confidence in Justin Trudeau's government, but not until late February or early March.
If we're talking the end of February and the beginning of March, and Mr. Trudeau has not stepped down, hasn't heeded that call from his own caucus, from his own cabinet, from all the opposition parties, then yes. So of course that would mean if we're coming up to a straight up non-confidence motion the end of February, early March, that's one of the tools that we have.
Why not until late February or early March? Well, of course, because Jagmeet Singh doesn't qualify for his $2.3 million pension until February 25th. So
why are we giving out $2.3 million pensions? Weird, right? Can we maybe remove that incentive, right? You can invest like everybody else invests rather than having a gold-plated parachute. Optimum Publishing says, important, this is on the tariffs. So this is kind of related to Trudeau and what's going on with the government, but this is the responsibility that Trudeau is shirking right now. Optimum Publishing says, important review on how one key U.S. official is looking at Canada's role in the fentanyl crisis that's killing 70,000 Americans each year and our meager commitment to going after the networks and how they're financed. Willful blindness, the book makes an appearance in the interview, and some in Ottawa shouldn't ask why, but should study its content. Yes, it's very, very interesting. And I actually think I have this queued up right here. I do. So we're going to listen to the end of that interview. It's really interesting. 6 minutes long, and it's very critical of Trudeau. This is 3 minutes, and this is the border czar, and Vasi Kapola's talking to the border czar, talking about what's going on in the United States. And I just want to make sure it's queued up. Hold on. We'll watch it from the top. It's a little bit long. I don't think we'll watch all of it, but it's Vasi Kapola's asking the border czar about the border plans being presented by Canadian top brass, and if that's enough to avoid the tariffs. And so there's a bit of a back and forth here. And basically he says, I don't know, I haven't talked to Trump about it yet, but we're going to actually try and work on this, and we're going to try and work collaboratively. And he mentions, though, at the end of the interview, that the RCMP seem to be working against. We have to jump ahead. The RCMP seem to be working against it, and he mentions Ortiz, who was highly placed in the RCMP and ended up being a Chinese spy. And I think like all of that's super interesting. So he's saying like, listen, it seems like a poison pill. It seems like we're not working together properly. I think it's him. Maybe it's the next guy, but I think it's him. Here we go.
And we heard one minister reference it, that you've spoken to two of our federal government's ministers about a border plan that they presented this week. In your view, Mr. Homan, does that plan address the concerns President Trump has about the border with Canada?
I don't know yet. We had a very general conversation on
both our countries concerned on cross-border crime, right? And we're certainly concerned about the number of aliens coming across the northern border coming into the United States from special interest countries like India, Pakistan, Turkey, and such. Border numbers on our northern border are up 600% from the previous administration. So we got a lot of issues on the northern border. So we talked about that, and they said they found some money to invest in border security and technology, and that we working together with your border security force and RCMP. But we haven't gotten the specifics yet. We agreed to meet in the next few days to talk about specifics, how we're going to make this work. I also committed to them that we're equally concerned about cross-border crime into Canada, and the secure border is going to help both countries. So one of the things I mentioned to them, I think Canada's immigration laws are too lax. It's pretty easy to get into Canada. Not a lot of not a lot of screening is done, not compared to the United States. I'm talking about those who come in just to get to Canada, transit to the United States. I think they need to be screened better before we let them in. Of course, that's up to Canada to change those rules, but I am grateful they're coming to the table to talk about border security, because the northern border is a huge national security risk, just because of the types of population that's coming through it.
So let me unpack a little bit.
We'll leave it there, but link is in the description if you're interested. Here is this one, and this is at the end of this. He says he's talking about the border issues and the fentanyl issues, and maybe this is the one who's talking about Ortiz as well. Here we go.
Number of contacts in Canada. When we try to go to Canada to ask for cooperation as to who they're talking to and what they're talking about, we have a lot of trouble getting answers. And we have a lot of reluctance to go even to ask them these days because of your disclosure law. I'm telling you, having done strategic law enforcement efforts successfully, including with Canadians in the past, this has become almost a poison as far as our collaborative capability. That, and of course, the fact that your head of drug intelligence, Cameron Ortiz, your number one guy was a Canadian, citizen, but a Chinese spy, also potentially working for the Iranians, some people say. So I don't really know the truth on that. Well, I do know he was charged related to Chinese espionage, which means that all of the top secret signals intelligence that we've been sharing with you for years was likely being ported off to Chinese organized criminal groups that are preying on both our nations.
But I would say, sir, that the Ortiz case, which is being appealed, but there is a conviction that would be an outlier. I mean, that is not the fundamental structure.
No, I mean, that was just one that was one Chinese spy for years, okay? One in a very, very important role. Just one, I mean, that we found. And also there's 11 MPs. Do you guys know about the 11 MPs? It might be 41. But this is just, I mean, it's an outlier. It doesn't always happen. We haven't talked about Ontario yet or Vancouver, BC. But you guys are... I think that perhaps... we need to look at what's going on in Canada, because this guy seems to have his finger on the pulse. But the host in Canada, who's desperately trying to say, oh, yeah, nothing to see here, everything's fine, does not seem to understand that it's not okay, right? It's not fine. Absolutely not fine. Senator who's... Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful